What is the deal with survival horror genre these days? I mean, really think about it. Back in the day, why did we play horror games? Because we wanted to get the ever-loving crap scared out of us. Now, it seems like horror has been combined with action. You can't play a scary game unless there's a ton of action in it. Back in the day, we had games like Silent Hill, where you're in a scary town and you had to run away from the enemies unless you'd probably die. Then you had games like Resident Evil, where you're in a mansion and you just collect items and keys to try and find your way out. You had games like Clock Tower, where you're not even supposed to fight the bad guy. You're supposed to run and hide from him. Now, it seems like you have games like Dead Space. Is it scary? Yeah. About an hour and a half into the game, I got used to how the developers were trying to scare me, and I was able to predict everything that was going to happen. It turned into just another action shooter. Take Resident Evil, for example. It seems like the games got less and less scary as time went on. The first game, you had dogs jumping through windows, you had hunters busting down doors trying to kill you, and you only had enough bullets to probably kill one enemy. Now we have Resident Evil 5, where it's as if Capcom just decided to fire everyone who was in charge of making it scary. Was it a good game? Yeah, I loved Resident Evil 5. It had a lot of fan service, but the entire game was just filled with brightly lit environments, tons of enemies, and tons of ammo to go around, so I was never in any immediate danger. It wasn't intimidating whatsoever. Another thing that you could look at is the Silent Hill series. The first game was really damn scary. The second and third games just got scarier and scarier. Then you had The Room, which really was kind of crap. Then you had Homecoming, where it's as if it just got progressively worse and worse and worse. The Suffering, Eternal Darkness. These games had no real direct sequels. They weren't the most popular games in the world, but they were still scarier than hell. Nowadays, a game like Fear, there are a lot of people that consider Fear one of the scariest games ever made. But to me, that game was running around killing the same enemies over and over and over again. Suddenly the lights would flicker and you'd see a girl walk across the room. I really don't see how that is considered horror compared to games back in the day where you were in a very intimidating environment. You had that sense of loneliness that if an enemy tried to attack you, you didn't have enough ammo to kill it, or maybe you just had a wooden board and that's what you had to use to fight it off. It's really sad because we don't get that these days. All everybody wants to see is just action. If you're not killing something every 10 seconds, then obviously it's a bad game. I don't know if a lot of people have heard of it, but Amnesia: The Dark Descent took everything that was good about old horror games and amplified it to the point where it was almost too scary to play for a lot of people. That game got pretty much no publicity in compared to Condemned or Dead Space or Fear. Those games are way more famous than Amnesia, which is a legitimate horror game. The developers really aren't the only ones to blame. You need to change things up, go with the times. You can't use the same formula forever. When Resident Evil 4 came out, obviously, it wasn't the same as the original Resident Evils. It was more action-based, it was over-the-shoulder shooter, but it still had some pretty scary elements. I mean, you had the Novistadors, you had their generators. Those are pretty scary parts in the game. But at the same time, I kind of felt like there was a lot more opportunity to make it a lot scarier that the game developers just didn't take advantage of. But yet, that game ended up being one of the greatest games that came out that year. The fans are also to blame for this, because if people are just rushing out by the masses to just buy these horror games and not standing up for what was the original scary stuff that we had when we were younger, then pretty soon there may be no horror games whatsoever. Will survival horror ever go back to the way it was? I don't know. Should it? Who am I to say? I really want to hear what you guys have to say about this whole thing. Do you guys like the way it's gone? Do you like the whole action-based horror games nowadays? Or do you guys think we should go back to the older method of horror games where you're just in a scary environment searching around for clues and items? Send us messages, leave us comments, and make sure you subscribe to our channel if you like us. Thanks for watching. This has been What's the Deal?